Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Well, for the first time, we have an actual robot reading the news in Japan. Now, of course, this is not the teleprompter Anderson Cooper or people of that ilk. No, this is an actual real robot that they're going to put on as a daily presenter in Japan. TV Tokyo will feature a humanoid robot as one of its main MCs. Now, of course, this is going to be in a kids program, but it is still the first time that a robot has landed a daily TV gig. Of course, they're going to begin by programming the kids to see that this is something that is usual. In America, of course, we've been programmed to see the teleprompters as robots for a long time, but seriously, robots are going to massively displace workers in a very short period of time. Robots, they say, will replace almost half of jobs over the next 20 years, according to an expert from the University of Oxford. This is a report coming out of Brisbane Times in Australia. They say that robots and computer programs could almost wipe out human workers and jobs, going from cooks all the way to truck drivers. They say driverless cars, even burger flipping robots. As a matter of fact, he said in 702 occupations, he believes that 47% of those are going to be overtaken by robots. And he went down very specifically about some areas. For example, he thinks 87% of the jobs in food services will be taken by robots. 75% of the jobs will be taken in transportation and warehouse, and 67% in real estate. Now, of course, you're also going to see cops in the military being rapidly replaced by robots. And that is something that is another level of danger. But just think about the fact that when we have 50% of the people displaced who no longer have jobs, what kind of an economic catastrophe, crisis, is that going to create? That is a depression. That is something that is very dangerous in and of itself. Perhaps that is why our government is preparing so hard to put down domestic insurrection, because they know this is coming. They know that it's coming very, very quickly. People will not have jobs. Many of these people that are going to be replaced, people who are flipping burgers, are going to have a very difficult time finding other types of jobs. Of course, they go on to say that he thinks that only 10% of the workers in IT, as well as software and hardware developers, will be replaced. Of course, what he's doing is he's getting these people to continue to design the ropes that are going to hang them eventually. But of course, in the meantime, they are going to be replaced by foreign workers from India who will work at a much lower wage base. So if they don't export the jobs to another country, if they don't turn them over to robots, they will bring in cheaper wage-based workers to take those jobs. Nevertheless, it looks very, very troubling for the economy and for political unrest that will follow that kind of massive unemployment. He goes on to say, in the long term, yes, we will see machines that will be potentially so intelligent as to have goals that aren't consistent with our own. Yeah, and then it starts to get pretty scary. And that's what Steve Wozniak has now come on board saying. He's joined the chorus of tech entrepreneurs who are concerned about the rise of robots and the rise of artificial intelligence that could come after us. Now, of course, we've talked to Hugo de Garis, who wrote The Art-Alike War. He thought that there would be a massive pushback as people started to realize how dangerous potentially these robots could become. Started to see them not so much as replacing their jobs, but seeing them as a threat to the human race, saying that they're going to be so intelligent they may just keep us as pets, or they may extinguish us altogether, as Steve Wozniak is saying. But it may even be something even more prosaic. The Art-Alike Wars could begin not over these godlike intelligences that would compete with us for dominance. It could begin by these robots just becoming burger flippers and putting everybody out of work. But Wozniak goes on to say that he has grave predictions. He says computers are going to take over from humans, no question. And of course, he joins Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, they say, who has been the most vocal about his concerns about AI, calling it the biggest existential threat to mankind. And I thought this was interesting. He's become an investor, of course, in some of these AI companies like DeepMind and Vicarious. And he says it's not from the standpoint of actually trying to make any investment return. He says, I just want to keep an eye out on what's going on, because he's very concerned about it. And you all should be. One of the first places you're going to see this is when you're taking out of your car, not just if your job is as a driver in the transportation industry, but when you're taken out of your ability to move yourself around freely in this country, when every bit of movement that you have is controlled by the government. They will be controlling those computers going on there. They're rolling this technology out now very rapidly. Chevy is now putting out a parent capability to spy on their teens because, you know, those teenagers, just like the valets when you park your Corvette, you got to worry about them. So they're going to give you surveillance tech to keep an eye out on them. And of course, you can pay extra to get that and to help them work the bugs out. This is what they're telling us in Wired Magazine. They say teenagers are terrible. Yes, but Chevy has got the solution to that. They're going to have a teen driver nanny mode available on the 2016 Chevy Malibu. It'll do things like muting the radio if the front seat drivers aren't wearing their seat belts. It'll also allow parents to put limits on their car that's associated with that specific key fob, so they can't disable safety features like stability, traction control, parking assist, daytime running lights, etc. So they're going to have all this, and here's the killer app right here. The feature will let parents see a report of total distance driven, maximum speed traveled, how many speed warnings were issued, see if there's any anti-lock or stability control events, or in other words, driver screw-ups, just like the valet mode that they put on the new Corvette. Let me explain to you that this is exactly the technology that our government is going to use against human drivers until they ban us altogether, as Elon Musk pointed out at South by Southwest last week. That's what's happening in the future. Eventually, humans will be banned from driving cars of any way, shape, or form. But in the interim, they are going to harass us mercilessly. There won't be any highway patrol. It'll be much worse than that. Everything you do will be logged and ticketed and fined. Your insurance company will know about it as well, so they can add that to your bill. They will pester and hound you to the extent that you won't be able to drive once they get you out, and you'll be begging. You'll be begging at that point for an autonomous-driven car because you won't be able to meet their specifications. You'll constantly be getting fined. You'll be begging for the autonomous car, and of course, some people are already begging for it. In another article from Wired Magazine, this writer is talking about the Mercedes robo-car that premiered at the Consumer Electronics Show back in January of this year in Las Vegas. And of course, that was the big theme of the Computer Electronics Show this year, was the autonomous driving cars. There were a slew of those. Of course, the one that got the most attention, the one that was the most complete, was the Mercedes robo-car. And as he points out, he's looking for, and this is a headline in the article, a shinier, safer world. That's always been the promise of technology, hasn't it? From the flying cars that we were promised back in the 1950s to now these wonderful autonomous cars that will never wreck, because I guess they won't be programmed by humans. They won't be programmed by the same people who programmed the blue screen of death for Microsoft. We'll never have to worry about them just having runaway acceleration, as we've seen in so many of the cars. So many different brands of cars have suffered from that problem. No, they're just going to put all of these systems that they've been setting up on the cars, they're going to put them all together all at once. And he celebrates the idea that we are looking forward to the death of driving. That's another part of his article here. He says, there will come a time within a few decades when the people simply will not drive anymore. And he says already, the steering wheel in this Mercedes is largely vestigial. He says, this isn't even a car that anyone would want to drive. It's heavy, it's cumbersome, it's slow. And he says he can't wait to get in it and not drive. Yeah, he's going to become one of the Eloi that we saw in the Time Machine from H.G. Wells, one of these passive, pink little flabby things that can no longer think or do anything for themselves. That's what they're looking forward to. But of course, it's already begun. We've seen just this last Friday, I believe it was, an automated car is going to drive without a driver all the way from San Francisco to New York. That has already begun. That's underway. And of course, Elon Musk at Tesla, even though he's concerned about the rise of the robots, even though he's concerned about people losing out to these rising machines, he says that he's going to make your Tesla drive itself. And listen to his time frame. We keep hearing this is decades in the future. They want to make people feel comfortable with this, that it's not something that's going to happen immediately. It's going to happen much, much sooner than that. They're going to phase it in, of course. First, they will have these kind of nanny systems like Chevy is putting into their cars now as an option. But the CEO of Tesla is saying that the next big software update for the Model S will roll out in 90 days. 90 days. And what's it going to have in 90 days? An auto steering function that will make the car largely autonomous on the highway. In between cities, it will drive itself. We'll still need to drive it once you get into town, but it will drive itself between cities. And that's not next year. It's not a decade from now. That's 90 days from now. This is all happening much, much sooner than you think. This will happen in our lifetime. And we should be very concerned, because when we lose the freedom to move around freely, that is the kind of control over your life that you have never seen before. But that is the goal. That's one of the aspects that the federal government is moving towards, controlling our transportation, not just at the TSA, but our very movement around on the roads from place to place.
Another major health threat, this one in Toledo, Ohio, where everybody in the entire city has been told not to drink the water.
Ohio's governor declaring a state of emergency.
Did you know that the average person uses about 80 to 100 gallons of water at home every single day? If there's a water emergency, will you be prepared?
Panicked residents forming long lines throughout the day.
We're here at a supermarket in Toledo. You can see the shelves empty where water once was.
To stay safe and healthy during a crisis, you must have access to safe, clean water. Water which will not be available at your local grocery store.
There's a mad dash on right now to stock up on supplies.
The ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system is a must-have for every modern, independently minded household. Protect your family's safety during an emergency. Go to InfoWarsStore.com today to purchase your ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system, or call 1-888-253-3139.